Some may call this film corny, or cheesy, or bad, but I love Independence Day. I always have and I always will. And I decided to come up with a video that shows the reasons why I love this film so much. So let's get started, shall we? One of the reasons why I love Independence Day is the screenplay by Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich. This is a screenplay that I think is a little bit underrated. It's not the most clever thing in the world. It's not 2001: A Space Odyssey or anything like that, but it's not trying to be. You know, not every film has to be full of philosophical thoughts, and not every film has to be deep. And this film knows that. This film is just trying to be an entertaining, over-the-top, big-budget B movie. A perfect popcorn summer blockbuster. And it honestly is quite underrated in a few different aspects. For instance, it really does a great job bringing out this human factor. It adds a lot of depth to the characters in this film. Now, not a super amount of depth, but enough that you learn to care about them, what happens to them. There's enough there, there's enough bits of personality for each individual character that they are given by the writers that really makes them stand out. Even some of the most kind of inconsequential supporting characters in this movie, they stand out. Like Vivica A. Fox's girlfriend at the strip club, who disobeys her orders and ends up going on top of the skyscraper anyway and gets blown up along with everybody else. I mean, these people stand out, and that's in large part due to the screenplay. Now, it also does a great job building the tension. It does a great job building up and building up and building until you finally build up to a total explosive, not really climax, but kind of you just build up to this explosive moment that that's grand enough as it is. It's such a grandiose moment in the film when the aliens, time's up and all these different buildings and stuff, the White House gets blown up and all this carnage and chaos happens. And it's all the more effective because the film took the time to build these characters and to build these different sort of plot threads before it blew shit up. So, I mean, it really, honestly, the film doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, for doing such a great job building up the tension. And this is even more impressive considering that Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich, they wrote this script in 4 weeks. It was sent out on a Thursday, and then they started fielding offers the next day. By Monday, they were already in pre-production. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive, if you ask me. 4 weeks, and they delivered a screenplay that, yes, it has its corny moments and some kind of cringe-inducing lines of dialogue at times, and it's not perfect, but for a script that was written in 4 weeks, it's got a lot going for it. And the script is one of the big reasons why the film works as well as it does, why it's still so entertaining to this day, is because the screenwriters knew how to take the film seriously, but at the same time also not take itself seriously. So they knew that they needed to add in some serious moments, some bits of serious human drama, in order to make the whole film so much more impactful to the viewer, to make things just really stick with people, to resonate with an audience. And yeah, that just makes it such a fun movie. But at the same time, it also is grounded enough in reality at times that it becomes such an immersive movie, which is another reason why it's so much fun. That's why I can watch it over and over again and not get tired of it, because it actually takes the time to build up these characters and to make you learn to love them, to care about them, and really root for them to win in the end. So yeah, and of course we can't talk about the script without talking about the epic speech by President Whitmore by Bill Pullman. This speech, the last part of it where he talks about, today is our Independence Day, that was not originally in the script. It was added at the last minute for dramatic effect in an effort to convince 20th Century Fox not to avoid a legal battle to earn the right to name the film Independence Day. At the time, the production was nicknamed ID4 because Warner Brothers owned the rights to the title Independence Day, and Dean Devlin had hoped if Fox executives noticed the addition in dailies, the impact of the new dialogue would help him win the rights to the title. It would help him and Roland win the rights to the title as well as Fox. And the right to use the title was eventually won 2 weeks later. So even that iconic speech is the result of a rush job. And that makes the speech even more impressive and amazing, considering that it was written at the last minute. So yeah, I gotta give big kudos to Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich for this script. It's got all those elements you want out of this type of big summer blockbuster movie. You got characters that you like and you care about. You got plenty of action sequences. You got plenty of explosions. You got a great build-up of tension till the first attack, and then you have even more good build-ups until you get to the final battle, and it definitely raises the stakes. The script does a fantastic job raising the stakes and making the entire film worth your while. Another reason why I love Independence Day is the cast. This is such a great cast, and it's honestly a cast that you're surprised at how well some of these cast members work with each other, especially Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith. I mean, who thought those two would make a great pair? I mean, I know I didn't until I saw the movie. So, and what's crazy is, depending on what rumors you hear or what bits of trivia you might find on the internet, I don't even know if it's honestly true, but I've heard things like Kirk Cameron was casted as Captain Stephen Hiller, the Will Smith character, but then he dropped out, and then they had to find somebody else, and they tried to get all different types of actors to replace Kirk Cameron, including Pauly Shore, and they eventually had to settle on Will Smith. And I mean, it was a pretty, I guess, fate would have it, Will Smith would get this role that he was absolutely perfect for. In fact, the producer, Dean Devlin, he gave nicknames to a lot of the cast members, and he gave a nickname to Will Smith that was Mr. Charisma. And he totally deserved it, because he was so charismatic, witty, and fun, and he just really made the film what it is. I mean, without Will Smith, Independence Day is nowhere near as entertaining or as fun. I can't really think of anybody else in that role. It's even Jean-Claude Van Damme, which I guess they were thinking about at one point in time, which would have been kind of fun to see Van Damme fighting aliens, but I'm definitely glad Will Smith got the role. And of course, Jeff Goldblum and Bill Pullman, in like one of my favorite roles that he's ever done as the president. Originally, the cast, the producers and the director Emmerich, he wanted Kevin Spacey for that role, but Spacey at the time, according to Fox, was not going to be a guy who would go on to be a big star, so they went for Pullman, which is really interesting in retrospect, because we all know what would happen. Spacey would go on to become this big star, except for right now, starring in crap like 9 Lives as the voice of a cat. But, and Pullman would be stuck in direct-to-video land making made-for-TV movies literally just a few years after this film was released. And, so yeah, you just got such a great cast. I mean, you got Judd Hirsch, who has really great chemistry with Jeff Goldblum, who plays Levinson's father. You have, of course, Alicia Fox, who originally they were thinking about going for Jada Pinkett Smith, but she was busy filming The Nutty Professor, so she came in. I think she did a great job replacing her. You also have like little supporting sort of roles that Harvey Fierstein as one of the guys who's working with Jeff Goldblum's character. He was fun, little bit role that he had. And Brent Spiner, Data, who was played Dr. Okun. And this character is actually based on a real person. It's based on Jeffrey A. Okun, the digital effects supervisor on Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin's earlier science fiction film, Stargate. And it is almost a perfect representation of Okun, right down to the hair and mannerisms. Like, Brent Spiner actually studied Okun to play Dr. Okun, which I think is kind of cool, and is a kind of a nice way to homage and to pay respect to the visual effects supervisor on Stargate. And Ali Walker was actually the original choice to play the character Connie, who was one of the supervisors, advisors for Bill Pullman's character. And, well, Ali Walker was the one, and she suddenly became unavailable in the last minute, so there was a rush to find a new actress to portray the Connie character. So that's when 37-year-old Margaret Cullen, she came in, and she jokingly told an inexperienced casting assistant that she was only 22, and the man assumed she was too young and called the producers to tell them that she was unavailable. But when the confusion was cleared up, Cullen landed the role and began filming scenes in Utah less than 24 hours after she was cast. She's another example why I love this cast and why I love the film. I really like her character. She has this spunk about her that's likable. She's also a character that there's some passion there from the actress. It definitely looks like she wants to be there, and she also had good chemistry as well with Jeff Goldblum. And, of course, you can't talk about the cast without talking about Randy Quaid, who, yeah, he's got a bit crazy lately, but, you know, this is definitely one of the better roles that he's had over his career. Probably the most memorable role he's done, other than Cousin Eddie from the Christmas Vacation movies. I mean, it was a character you definitely did feel for. It was kind of an ass to his kids in the beginning, but he made up for that later with a very noble sacrifice that is definitely memorable. And he had some fun one-liners. I mean, up yours, you know, and then the whole thing where he's like, I'm back. So, yeah, that was fun. And speaking of dialogue, most of the dialogue in the scenes with Jeff Goldblum and Judd Hirsch and Will Smith, they were improvised. Completely, totally improvised. Which is just another thing that makes this cast so amazing and so great. Of course, you also got Robert Loggia, who plays the general. You just gotta, it's a really diverse and great cast. I mean, even Adam Baldwin has a brief role that I remember. I don't necessarily remember the guy's name. I don't even know if he had one, but, you know, he definitely had a presence. And so, yeah. And I guess most of the cast and crew, including Will Smith, this is how much the cast had to deal with. This shows, once again, this is like the perfect way to show how great this cast was, because they had to deal with a lot of shit. They had to deal with the elements while filming the movie, and specifically they suffered severe sunburns on their legs during filming in Utah of the Grand Canyon duel/crash scenes. So they all got like severe sunburns shooting this movie. So they have battle scars to prove it. They got battle scars from shooting this film. So yeah, absolutely love this cast. It's a big reason why the film is so great to me. And I don't think you could have asked for a better cast. From the main cast down to the supporting cast. I mean, I just remembered Harry Connick Jr. How could I forget Harry Connick Jr., who played Wilder, Will Smith's co-pilot. He was just he was in it very briefly, but he made enough of an impact that I actually did feel sad when he died. That's a prime example of a great cast right there, when you got like a little cast member who's just barely in the movie, and he dies, and you actually feel sad. I mean, that's a top-notch cast right there, top flight. Another reason why I love Independence Day is the directing by Roland Emmerich. I think it's pretty underrated. I think this is the probably my pick for my favorite Roland Emmerich film. I really love Universal Soldier, and I really like Stargate as well, so it's kind of hard to pick between those three. But if I had to pick, it would definitely be Independence Day. And Roland Emmerich's direction in this, I think, is pretty underrated, considering everything that he had to work with, everything that he had to pretty much kind of lord over and keep an eye on is astonishing. This is a director who, before this film, had been doing a lot with less. And now he gets a $75 million budget, and he's been tasked with directing and bringing together and bringing to life what is ultimately going to probably be 20th Century Fox's summer blockbuster. This was like 20th Century Fox basically putting all their eggs in his basket, and he pulled it off. He hit a home run. The film was shot in 72 days, which at the time was an unusually short period of time for such a big movie. The shoot utilized on-set, in-camera special effects more often than CGI in an effort to save money and to get more authentic pyrotechnic results, which I absolutely love. That's another aspect of this film. That's one of the biggest aspects of this film that leads to my just love for the movie is the visual effects, and I'll get to that later. But many of these shots were accomplished at the Hughes Aircraft in Culver City, California. So it's where the film's art department, motion control photography teams, pyrotechnic teams, and model shop are headquartered. So it was like this giant hangar that basically just shot a lot of the film in. And yeah, for everything that he had to work with all these different second and third and fourth units and all of these special effects units, shooting all these different miniatures and so on, is impressive. Shooting on location, in certain places that were kind of hard to shoot because of the elements, and also just the way that he put together the film, his mark on it, so to speak. He just did a great job with his shots. He did a great job shooting miniatures to the point where, or his crew did, that they looked real. I mean, the White House destruction still looks real to this day. If you ask me, I could barely even tell that it was a miniature. A lot of this other stuff I can barely even tell was a miniature. You can barely even tell what CGI there is in the movie. The film is like pretty much like 90 to 95% practical effects and 5% is CGI. But you know, that just goes into the director. He has to completely just keep track of everything and put everything in together into some kind of cohesive whole. And he managed to do that. And there's a lot he had to work, lot that he had to deal with. There was a lot to work with, but it was like putting a puzzle together. It was almost like having a giant puzzle and somebody just dumped the box everywhere, and you had to find all the missing pieces and put them together in a very short time frame. So, and he did that with just such great aplomb and energy, and it showed through the direction that this is a project that if it wasn't a project he wanted to do, I definitely could not tell, because it definitely felt like there was a heart behind the direction, like there was passion. This is a film that Emmerich wanted to direct. This is a film that he wanted to deliver to the audience. He wanted to entertain the audience, and he did that and then some. This is the most entertaining alien invasion movie ever made, if you ask me. It's just so much fun to watch, and a lot of that is because of the direction, because he does a great job with all of the action effect sequences, and it's just so exciting. It's so exciting and fun to watch. And he also sets up really cool, unique looking shots. This film has an epic size and scope, and in large part that's due to Emmerich's direction. And I don't know if anyone other director could deliver the same sort of epic size and scope that Emmerich did, especially with all the practical effects, because Emmerich already had prior experience with previous films, with dealing with lower budgets, with delivering these just absolutely jaw-dropping sequences, these jaw-dropping effect sequences, these jaw-dropping films with some really great-looking effects, because even with a low budget, it didn't matter because he just knew what he was doing. And it's really too bad to see him now just deal with all this CGI and all of this, and it seems like he's out of his comfort zone. He was at his best when he was dealing with shooting on a set, on location, and not behind a green screen. It just seems like that passion to like blow shit up for real is like gone because nobody wants to blow shit up for real anymore. They'd rather blow it up in a computer. But yeah, I definitely think Emmerich is one of the better directors when it comes to directing this type of film, this type of disaster movie, this big, big blockbuster. And Independence Day is proof of that. He does know what he's doing when it comes to that. And it's just a shame that he hasn't been able to recapture whatever that he had when he directed this. I mean, there's been films afterwards that I didn't mind, but none of them have even equaled his work on Independence Day, at least for me personally. Just his sense of visual flair and style is great too. He just knows how to get the most out of his visuals. And that is a very underrated aspect when it comes to Roland Emmerich. Another reason why I love Independence Day is the effects. The Oscar-winning visual effects. Yes, this film won an Oscar for visual effects. It absolutely deserves it. It won the Oscar. Volker Engel, Douglas Smith, Clay Pinney, Joe Viscosil, they all just did a phenomenal, spectacular, stunning job with the visual effects in this movie. They are still impressive to this day. They must have been absolutely stunning back when it was released in 1996, because nothing had ever been done like this before. Folks, you gotta put things in perspective here. Independence Day was a record-setting effects show. A then record of 3,000 plus special effects shots would ultimately be required for this movie. That was a then record. That was a record. And the fact that they pulled it off is just astonishing. It still is astonishing. Everything that they were able to do. And a lot of the stuff that they did it on a pretty cheap effects budget. So that's even more impressive. So, yeah, it holds the record for the most miniature model work to appear in one movie. Model shop supervisor Michael Joyce estimated that more miniatures were used for this film than in any other two films combined. Due to the advances in digital technology since the film's release, most experts believe that this record may stand forever. It probably will, because for some reason people just don't want to do practical effects anymore. They don't want to do miniatures. They don't want to do models. They'd rather do everything in a computer. And yes, models, if they're not shot right, can just look like toys. But if they're shot right, they look like the real thing. And you can't beat it. CGI still is yet to beat it. I mean, I'm sorry. Blowing up a mock-up is more realistic and looks a hell of a lot better on the big screen to me, or even on a small screen, than blowing up a CGI White House. Or a CGI building. The production's model-making department, they built more than twice as many miniatures for the production that had ever been built for any film before by creating miniatures for buildings, city streets, aircraft, landmarks, and monuments. The crew also built miniatures for several of the spaceships featured in the film, including a 30-foot destroyer model and a version of the mothership spanning 12 feet. It's just absolutely mind-blowing when you look at everything that they were able to put together and to put on the screen in Independence Day. It's one of those things that I think a lot of people might take for granted when they watch this movie. They think like, oh yeah, those effects are amazing, but they don't really take into account like how much work went into this, how much man-hour, how much crew members there were who slaved and worked their asses off creating models and mock-ups and miniatures, how much ingenuity they had to use in order to create these effects. They couldn't just have some guy, couldn't just go to some guy on the computer and say, hey, make this, put this, do your work. No, they had to actually build these things with their hands. The alien spacecraft in Area 51 was a full-scale model measuring 65 feet wide. Now that's a big-ass spaceship. That's like the size of the real spaceship. No wonder it looks so great in those Area 51 sequences, because they actually built a full-size model. The White House model covered 10 feet by 5 feet and was used in forced perspective shots before being destroyed in a similar fashion for its own destruction scene. The detonation took a week to plan and it required 40 explosive charges. It's time well spent, if you ask me. And the White House, which exploded, was built at a 1/12 scale, just to be blown up. That's all. It was just, they built the White House just to blow it to smithereens. And that's just awesome. I mean, it's something that it's a lost art to just build a miniature, just blow it up, just blow that shit up. I really miss like real explosions in films. Enough of this CGI explosion crap. Blow shit up for real. At least Michael Bay kind of knows. I'll give him credit for that, but he also does have a lot of CGI, so I can't give him too much credit. But anyway, so yeah, the White House gets blown up. It's such an iconic sequence. I mean, it's on the cover of this is an iconic moment in film. And the big reason why is because the effect is done so well. So yeah, so it's this model though was also used in one other shot when they didn't blow it up, when David and Julia stopped the car in front of the White House. That was actually used that wasn't the real White House, folks. That's crazy, right? It looked like the real thing to me. Probably did to you too, but it wasn't. 9 cameras filmed the explosion at various speeds, one of which was 12 times faster than normal, then played back at normal speed to make the explosion seem larger and slower on film. During the aliens' initial attack, shots of cars landing on other cars were achieved by using cranes that released actual hollowed-out cars onto cars loaded with explosives. So when you saw those sequences where cars are flipping and blowing up, that was real. Can't get more real than real. And these effects guys knew it. They knew that. To achieve the effect of flames traveling along the street, the crew placed a downward-facing high-speed camera above a miniature model of a street tilted at roughly 90 degrees. When explosives were set off on the ground, the flames would rise towards the camera while engulfing the model. When the film was played at normal speed, it gave the illusion that the flames were traveling laterally at the speed seen in the film. That effect just still looks phenomenal. It looks great. You would think that was a CGI effect. No, that is not a computer-generated effect. That's real fire that they had flowing over a miniature, and they shot it in multiple different speeds until they found the right speed that worked, and then went with that. This is the type of creativity that is lost with visual effects nowadays, because they can just do it in the computer, which leads to effects artists and movies and producers getting lazy when it comes to visual effects. And that's not good. Visual effects are one of the most important things in this particular type of movie, a big blockbuster. The smoky effects of the alien spacecraft as it moves into position above New York City was created by a double exposure on the film. The effect comes from recording water in a tank and after it turns murky after a clod of dirt was dropped into it. Cloud tanks. This is stuff you don't see on film anymore. I miss cloud tanks. This is this kind of. I have yet to see a CGI effect that looks as good as whatever is created by a cloud tank. For example, let's look at the effects in the skies darkening and all of that in Ghostbusters, or in Ghostbusters 2 when all that stuff happened. That was all done with cloud tanks, like water, dirt, some smoke, and a camera. To achieve the look of Houston as seen from the air at night, the crew simply poked holes in a sheet of black construction paper. They placed the paper in front of a bright light in a smoke-filled room and photographed it using special lighting to accomplish the effect. This is ingenuity. This is using your brain. Our budget for the effects, we got these huge amounts of effects we got to do for this movie. What are we going to do? We can't use CGI to do it. So let's use our brains. Let's put our heads together. Let's think on this and Bam! Construction paper. It works. I can't tell. I didn't even know it was construction paper until I read this. Until I first saw this. That just shows you how great these visual effects are. They can take construction paper and make it look amazing. Production designer and Patrick Tatopoulos, he presented Roland Emmerich with two concepts for the aliens. This is another aspect about the film I love, is the aliens. They looked different. They didn't look like xenomorphs. They didn't look like greys. These were aliens that you had not seen before in film. They looked completely different when it comes to anything that we'd ever seen before. So these were actual unique looking aliens, which was really, really I really appreciated that. So, and they looked great too. Tatopoulos and his team of mega special effects artists I got to give them a hand. I got to give them a round of applause because they look like real aliens to me. So, he had two concepts for the aliens. And Emmerich liked both designs so much that he came up with the idea to use one design as the actual alien, and the other to be a biomechanical suit that the aliens would wear. And both of Tatopoulos' concepts appear in the film, which is really cool. That's a really cool idea anyway. The idea that the alien, the outer appearance of the alien is an exoskeleton, and then on the inside there's this like little other alien who's the one that basically controls. It's like it's like a puppet, and the smaller alien controls the armor, controls the body. And to give the aliens a slimy appearance, KY jelly was used. Yeah, that stuff. The stuff that, might be for his or her pleasure, if you know what I mean. It had to be applied to the alien props several times during outdoor scenes because the intense heat in the Utah desert caused the jelly to evaporate in just a few minutes. So this is the type of visual effects we're talking about, folks. A visual effects group of people who were working on the special effects for this movie. There's probably somebody who was just the KY jelly guy who was just there. I mean, I got to give that guy a hand too. I mean, that had to be a gross, nasty, sticky, just awful job, but he did a good job, and the aliens look slimy, and thank you. It was like the unsung hero of the production. Yeah, absolutely just love the visual effects of this movie. Even the visual effects and the production design, they go hand in hand. So does the makeup special effects. It's a big reason why the film still holds up so well to this day. The reason why it's dated, I think, pretty well. It's the reason why it's so thrilling and still exciting, because of everything that they're able to do with miniatures, with the fighter jets, and with the spaceships. And then you have the stuff with the aliens. It was a big, huge event film, and no expense was spared, it seemed like, with the visual effects, even though they were kind of doing visual effects on the cheap whenever they had the chance. It was still such an unbelievable, just amazing job. Well done. Another reason why I love Independence Day is the score by David Arnold. This score is so underrated. It's sweeping, it's epic, it's scary when it needs to be, it's ominous when it needs to be, it's memorable. You can play this at the 4th of July, especially the finale, the end credits sort of score. You can play that at the 4th of July and light fireworks to it, and it would just fit perfectly. It is such a great score, and it's another reason why I love the film so much. The score just gives the film that extra added edge. It gives it more flavor. It makes it that much better. And this type of score proves something that I think is really starting to be lost with a lot of films nowadays. How important a great score is to a movie. Because a great score elevates the film. It elevates the entire movie. It makes certain sequences more suspenseful. It makes certain shots in the film so much more exciting and thrilling. It's what gives you chills when you hear Bill Pullman's epic speech near the end of the movie. These are things that are being lost on a lot of producers and a lot of people's minds, it seems like, when it comes to a lot of new films. Just a lot of scores just blend together, sound the same, in one ear, out the other. And that's really too bad. Music is every bit as important. A great score, a great soundtrack is every bit as important as every single pyrotechnic effects sequence. Is every bit as important as the best visual effects, or the best directing, or the performances by the cast. And that seems to be kind of, I don't know, it just seems to be something that's kind of quickly kind of becoming a lost art, just like it is for visual effects, especially practical visual effects. But anyway, David Arnold, he went through a lot making this score. He struggled. He really struggled. And it doesn't sound like it, but he did. He struggled so much that he secluded himself in a Los Angeles hotel room for almost 4 months to avoid the escalating hype for the movie. But from his window, he saw helicopters carrying banners with taglines of the film as a part of a marketing campaign, which only stressed him out even more, which is understandable. This is like the biggest film he's ever scored at this point. There's a lot riding on this. And even though he did not get nominated for Best Score by the Oscars, which I think is a ripoff, he did win the Grammy Award for Best Score, which he absolutely deserved. And I'm really glad he won some kind of award for the score, because it is an absolutely it's a sonic masterpiece. And I mean that. It is an absolutely fantastic score. I cannot stress that enough. I can't sing the score's praises enough. I really can't. It deserves every good thing, every positive, every kudos, every possible thing that you can say to describe a good, great score. This score deserves every single one of them. And according to the liner notes from La La Land Records release of the score, the drum rhythm heard during the invasion scenes at the beginning of the film are the Morse code letters D-I-E. So that shows you that this score is like even more awesome than you thought it was, because it has like hidden messages now. I mean, that's really cool. The fact that David Arnold, even while he was so stressed out making the score, he still came up with the idea of, I'm going to put some Morse code letters in there, just for fun. And those letters actually turned out to really work so well. They just blended perfectly into the score itself. It's a great choice and a great score. And one final reason why I love Independence Day is, quite simply, to put it simply, it's fun. It's entertaining. It doesn't bore me. It's got so much heart and soul, and that's one of the main reasons why it's so entertaining to me and why it still holds up so well. All those other reasons that I mentioned are definitely big reasons why. But when it comes to just entertainment factor, it's because it has a heart and soul to it. It has likable characters. You care about what happens to them. It has great thrilling action sequences, but they wouldn't be as thrilling if it didn't have likable characters associated with them. And that's just a big reason why. And all these elements blend together to make it a film that's fun, that's entertaining, that is brimming with heart and soul. And that's, if you ask me, that's something that's lost in a lot of films like this nowadays. They just give you nothing but the spectacle, nothing but the effects, but they don't bother with the characterization. They don't bother with the characters. And as a result, everything just feels empty and soulless. And it's like, I honestly feel like I'm not thrilled. I'm not excited. But with this film, it's consistently thrilling, it's consistently exciting, and it's consistently fun, because I love to go on the ride. I love to come back to this ride again and again because of the great characters, and that's one of the big reasons why I love this film, as well as all the other reasons that I already mentioned. But anyway, yeah, no one else to say except I love Independence Day, and it's fine if you disagree. A lot of people do. A lot of people think this film is trash. I personally don't understand that, but, you know, people are entitled to their opinion. But, yeah, this is mine. And, anyway, speaking of Independence Day, I hope you guys all have a great Independence Day. I hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July, and I will see you guys later. See.